Thank you. Happy New Year to everyone and welcome to the 8th of January 2021 meeting of the Joint Waste and Recycling Committee. My name is Councillor Claire Dowling and I'm Chairman of the committee. Now this meeting is being held remotely and live streamed via YouTube. The recording will be available afterwards on Rother District Council's website. Now please can I ask everyone to turn your mobile phones to silent if you haven't already done so. Councillors only, please leave your cameras on. And again, for everyone to mute your mics when not speaking, as this will help reduce feedback and background noise. Now I'm going to do a roll call just to check that all members who are expected to attend are present. Excuse me. As I say your name, please turn on your microphone and confirm you are connected. Councillor Paul Barnett. Paul?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Mayor Evans?
Here.
Councillor Catherine Field?
Present.
Councillor Roy Galley?
Present.
Councillor Sue Projak?
Present.
Councillor Bob Stanley?
Present.
Now, officers joining us today are from East Sussex County Council, Justin Foster.
Present.
Hastings, Mike Hepworth.
Present.
Rother District Council, Malcolm Johnston.
Present.
Robin Venard. Robin? Okay, Robin may be joining us later. Joe Powell.
Present.
Thank you. Deborah Kennelly.
Yes, present. Thank you.
And Wealdon District Council, Avril Price.
No, I'm David Plank. I'm standing in for Avril. She's on holiday today.
Thanks, David. Chris Bone.
Present.
Thank you, Chris. Joint Waste Office, Madeline Gorman.
Present.
Biffa, we have Simon Baddeley.
Present.
Fabrice Bouchon.
Yeah, good morning. Present.
And Trevor Elliott.
Present.
And today's Democratic Services Officer and Committee Clerk is Julie Hollands.
Present.
Okay, thank you for that, everyone. Now, members who wish to speak, can I remind you, please indicate by typing your surname only in the chat facility. The chat facility is permanent in that it cannot be deleted and inappropriate use will be deemed as potential code of conduct matter. Officers wishing to respond to members' questions, please can you type interject. Members are reminded not to press leave meeting. If you do need to leave the room, please just turn your cameras and mics off. So we'll go straight to the agenda. Agenda item 1, to resolve that the minutes of the last meeting be confirmed as a correct record of the proceedings and will be signed by me, the chairman, at a later date. If you agree, please just wave at the screen. Okay. Thank you. Agenda item 2, Julie, are there any apologies for absence?
Yes, so we have apologies from Cameron Morley, Carl Taylor, Carl Valentine, Avril Price, and as Robin's not here, I'll give Robin's apologies as well, Robin Venard.
Okay, thank you. And are there any additional agenda items?
No, there's none.
Okay, item 4, disclosure of interest. Members, please speak clearly if you have a personal or personal and prejudicial interest and state which item it refers to. Take it there are none. Agenda item 5, Julie, do we have any members' questions?
No, there's none.
Okay, and likely any non-committee member questions?
No, there's none as well.
Thank you. And now I'm going to invite Trevor to introduce the presentation. Trevor, over to you.
Thank you very much, Chair. Good morning, everyone, again. If I just may present. And hopefully you can all see my screen and the presentation I'm about to deliver. So, as I said, welcome to today's update and Happy New Year to everyone. If we move forward, you will note that this was agreed with the Joint Waste Office that we would only consider and deliver you an update on October to November 2020 due to the timing of this meeting. Flicking through the contents is pretty much standard. Hopefully you've all seen the and prepared and have your questions ready for the end of the presentation. So we move straight into health and safety being our primary concern. And as you can see from the graph, we are now showing early signs of the culture change that we've prevailed towards and we've aspired to. Within this period, the near misses and hazards, and I will point out that most of these are hazards, the majority are hazards and not near misses. So these are concerns reported by the employees. These have increased significantly, whereas the injuries have decreased, and that's the balance and then the tip of the scales that we were aspiring to. Unfortunately, there has been 4 reported injuries. 1 in Hastings, 1 in Rother, and 2 in Wealden. Neither were there was no significant trend within the Wealden ones. One was basically body ergonomics. As an individual went to get out of a cab early in the morning, he turned to collect a torch and he twisted his back. And the second was an injury sustained on a day that we had high winds, and the operative on streets was taking a bag from the vehicle and the door blew and hit him on the head. Neither were lost time injuries, but it's early signs of our culture being embedded within our staff and within our workforce, which is fantastic. There's been an awful lot of work to get us to this stage, and the following slide depicts that work that we've carried out over the past 12 months. I won't read it all, but you can see there's an awful lot of work, and this is continual, and there's still an awful lot more to do. So yeah, moving on. Our HR update. Again, we continue to have high levels of full-time employment. Notable points are there's been a reduction in vacant positions and the churn rate has decreased, which again is a favourable position to be in. In terms of our management team, there's been no amendments since the previous update. We've got stability within the team now. We believe we've got the right balance of positions, and this has been evident within our performance. So moving on to performance and collections performance within Rother. As you can see, a continual improvement, which again is fantastic from my perspective. I'm really pleased with this. Obviously, there's always more that we can do, but it's definitely going in the right direction. And we've obtained this through revised internal procedures and enhanced performance monitoring within the team. Hastings, once again, thankfully, and as I did state, we've improved dramatically since our awful month in September. But it just depicts again that we are moving everything in the right direction. Again, for the same methods and procedures that we've applied across in monitoring this and driving performance improvements. And Wealden, well, that just continues to surpass our expectations, which is fantastic. I mean, obviously we need to do more, but it's definitely moving in the right direction a lot quicker than we anticipated. The partnership, the combined cumulative performance, as you can see, is significantly below the thresholds. Missed Assisted, there's been an improvement across all 3 authorities. Again, this is through revised internal procedures and greater scrutiny from us. Repeated misses, whilst there's been a slight increase in November, this still is more favourable to the previous 2 months. So again, that's all moving in the right direction. Our streets cleansing, we always appear to be fantastically. We're below the thresholds, which is what we're driving for, but there's always more work we can do. HighSpeed Roads, these are planned and completed. My ops manager who deals with this with the local authorities, officers, is in dialogue with them and correspondence in terms of what we want this year. There's still a bit of outstanding work to do to take us to April. And then by all accounts, he's advised me that the officers were pleased with what we've done so far, and these roads are on next year's lists. On that, when I say next year, it's this year beyond April. Peripheral services, containers, again, performance is favourable. Slight decrease in November created by the change in supplier and a delay in deliveries, but we've got that back. COVID, as we were all discussing prior to the meeting. The 72-hour vehicle quarantine procedure has ceased, and that's in respect of daily vehicle sanitising being implemented. So that's given us a greater and reduced the risk to us of operational risk and delays. As you can see, the elements that we've improved are all along the right-hand side. Communication, signage, cleansing regimes, PPE, COVID secure officer in place, travelling on sites. We've suspended that obviously at the moment because of the increase in contraction, and so the sites are dealing with that, and we are monitoring that to ensure that they are dealing with it. Obviously, daily absence monitoring, installation of perfect screens within each of our depots in terms of the offices. We have lost 89. We did lose 89 days within this period. As you can imagine, December is a different set of figures completely. Just to give you an indication on that, we're up to 183 days in December that we've lost time through COVID. Testing within this period, one employee resulted in a positive test, and it was only one. The associated crew member was required to self-isolate within a close contact protocol. To date, we've had no contraction of COVID through work. This has all been through cohabitants, which indicates to us that our measures that we put in place, our COVID secure measures, are actually working and continuing to do so. I mentioned earlier the culture change with the tipping in the scales, the balance changing, which is fantastic. I mean, the things that we've done to support this, not only towards injuries, it's also the well-being of the staff and the attitude of the staff. So as you can see, there's been a lot of work that's gone on. Billbrook was the last of the depots that had the improvement works. Well, they're well on their way. I've had a call this morning to say that the upstairs facility, which has created an office for the management team, or the manager, the operations manager now, who's in position there, and the welfare area for the staff, albeit they won't be able to use it all in numbers, but it's there now, which is great. Some of the downstairs welfare is still going on, and then we've got some outside works, which we've already dealt with certain elements. Employee engagement, again, you can see we're nominating employees of the month, and we're giving out awards. So an increase in communication. Our Biffa Group app is being driven by every one of us to the employees to download this. It gives them so much more communication, and it's so much quicker. And as I say, the management team, one of our team left to take maternity leave. She's very comfortable at the moment. She's very well, which is fantastic. And we've temporarily recruited someone for the position. Contractual updates, as you can see, hopefully you've all had time to read these. These are all well within progress, or certain ones are complete. We just take the completed ones. The stickers have gone out. The time and attendance management is in place. The end of life containers, we're now sharing any revenue from. Canberra is ongoing. We've got a few meetings this month regarding that. So it's been a year of change. We commenced in January and February with promoting a rebranding and a refocus on safety and well-being of our internal procedures and staff, and to focus on it. We commenced with our strategy of required actions to achieving our objectives, i.e. the culture change and service improvement. March to June, we met on with the worldwide pandemic, numerous of compliments received, which is fantastic. It really did keep the morale of the staff up. Sorry about that. And in July, we encountered unprecedented changes, what with CVs returning, not returning, you name it. But I suppose really through October, November, we've reported, as I've said, more hazards and sustained less injuries. And we've improved service performance and received fewer complaints. And we've sustained these levels of performance. I'm really pleased with this. Preparing for the future. We recognise the challenges that local authorities face, and we're working with a number of clients elsewhere to looking at future considerations, such as the forthcoming bills, recycling targets, separate weekly food collections, and the carbon neutral intentions. And therefore, we will be preparing and delivering a presentation for you to stimulate the discussion with yourselves, and looking forward to meeting these challenges and objectives. Any questions?
Yeah, thank you, Trevor. Yes, the questions have started coming in. I've got Councillor Galley first.
Okay.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Just wanted to follow up on high-speed roads and other street cleaning. And just, I think, well, first of all, I suppose, Trevor, just to say how delighted we all are with the level of performance generally, and it has been a very major improvement and continuing. So thank you for that and congratulations. On high-speed roads, which has been a matter of some concern for a while, we now have this really effective programme at last with Highways England and doing the work overnight and so on. You did, I think, sort of say that this was going to be an ongoing programme.
Yes.
But I just wanted to confirm that it will roll out automatically next year. We will be doing this on a regular basis, and we won't have to chivvy Highways England to keep doing this. That's first. I'll do it. The second part of my question is that apart from those roads, there are some other roads where I've noticed recently a bit of a build-up. A275, 272, the major roads, but not the high-speed roads, and just making sure that we might have a programme for those roads as well as we go forward. That we're going to have a regular cleansing of the verges throughout the year. So thank you, Trevor. That's my two sort of questions.
Well, thank you very much for your compliments towards our service. Much appreciated, and service performance to date, I should say. In terms of the high-speed roads, yes, the programme will continue. As stated, we have no intention to reduce it. In fact, we want to do more. Let's be honest. With regards to what's programmed for this year, as I said, at present, my operations manager is dealing with the client officers. He's telling me that, the client officers have given him the list of roads. They're happy with that. I mean, if these need to be included, by all means, it just needs to come through your client officers, respective client officers. But we're more than happy to accommodate where possible.
Okay, Councillor Galley, do you wish to come back before I move on?
No, thank you, Chairman. I think that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you, Trevor.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Stanley, Bob.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Can I also endorse what Councillor Galley has said? I think it's an excellent performance. To be honest, it's an excellent performance in any situation, and given we're in the middle of a pandemic, I think that is particularly good. Slightly concerned by the comments about in recent weeks, but no doubt we'll come on to that in the other report. My comment was, and you picked up on it on page 4 about near misses, because I obviously noted it's a 47% increase. But given that you said that they're mainly to do with hazard reporting, which is good, I wonder whether we can in future have those two figures separated, because it's that 47% increase is quite stark, but it obviously with explanation is not quite as bad as it looks. So maybe separating those would be helpful. Thank you.
Yes, no problem whatsoever. I was considering that myself, actually, because it may mislead people when you see the near miss, but they are predominantly hazards. And this is what we want. We want our staff to report concerns so that we get that interaction, we get the concerns, we reduce the risk, we reduce the injuries, etc., etc. But yeah, no problem at all. We will separate these for future updates.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barnett, Paul.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, Trevor, thank you very much for the report, and also, as the other councillors have already said, congratulations on the performance. And it's been a tough time for every organisation, but a particularly tough time for a lot of your teams out on the streets. And I think it is remarkable, and particularly, of course, we're delighted to see the missed collections going in the right direction fast. And you pulled that right back. So thank you very much for that. My questions were on two issues, really. The assisted collections, you said that that was improving across the board. I don't think that's quite true in Hastings. I think the figures suggest there might still be a bit of a bump there. And given how vulnerable a lot of our residents are, those who need assisted collections, I think if we could continue to have a close look at that, please, and try and get the figures down even more. And my other thought was this one on COVID security. I think it is amazing if you're saying that nobody has caught COVID on the job. I'm not sure how you know that. And I think, are you not saying that you've had about 90 lost days due to COVID, and you don't think any of that is work related? I wonder, given the proximity of the staff working together in the vehicles, usually crews of 3, I think, working very closely together, has there been any thought about changing that, given that the infection is now so much more prevalent, particularly, I was going to say particularly in Hastings, but of course it's happening now right across all authorities in East Sussex. And I think when we discussed this 6 months ago, you felt that it wasn't a particularly an issue, and that you had protocols in place that the staff were happy with. Now that we seem to have this more infectious strain, has there been any thought to changing those arrangements, or are you still comfortable that staff are not likely to be catching COVID from each other? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Barnett. Assisted collections, I'm in a good position there in terms of where we were in December. Hastings had the lowest missed complaints in terms of assisted collections. So yes, we are, focusing on these, drilling them down, and we'll continue to do so. So yes, there is more work to do without a doubt, and we are doing that. So just to give you peace of mind, we are doing extremely well with that, but we still need to do a lot more, and we're doing it on a consistent theme. In terms of the COVID security, I can say that nobody's contracted it through work, close contacts. When we look at, the way that we know this is obviously we chase and we request and we collate a lot of information on everybody who is, outside of the CEV, which is just government instruction, these clinically extremely vulnerable individuals. We monitor, we request information such as the track and trace information, the test information, the self-isolation notes, so we can actually pretty much create a story of where it's been contracted from. And these are usually, they are in the main, pretty much 99.9% have been through that somebody within the employee's bubble at home, within their home life, has contracted it, or they're feeling unwell, or they're self-isolating and they've had negative tests, etc., etc. So we do an awful lot of work. There's a hell of a lot of work that goes on in the background to monitor how and where, just to secure and for the peace of mind for the staff that remain at work, really. In terms of any thoughts towards process or change, we would be led by our internal group updates and instructions and communications and guidance. At present, we're doing everything we can. As I said previously, I wouldn't say the staff are happy with it, but they're content with what we've done, and the measures that are in place. We're at present, as I say, if an individual wants to start on the round, get off on the round, whatever, we're trying to keep them out of the vehicles as much as we can. But you can appreciate, with the exception of Hastings, we're travelling an awful lot of distance in these vehicles in certain areas. So there's not a lot we can do. As a company, we looked at putting maybe perspex screens in vehicles, etc., etc., and that would cause, God forbid, if we had an incident, within the vehicle where they couldn't get across the vehicle, and this is why they're low access vehicles, so that they can walk through if there was an emergency. So, going back to that, we would wait and receive communication and guidance from our group. But at present, nothing's come through to change any of our protocols, which continue to follow the Wish Forum guidance. So, back to you, Chair.
That's right. Councillor Barnett, do you wish to follow up? No, you're okay. Thank you. Councillor Prochak.
Thank you, Chair. Happy New Year to you and everybody, and to you, Trevor.
Thank you.
Amazing. I don't quite know how you've done it. Amazing performance, particularly the stability of it as well. It's really heartening to see that. I just got a few points to make, if I may, Councillor Dowling. One is that at the end of the last meeting, we had a very good discussion about carbon reduction and carbon neutrality, and how every council around this table has actually passed a motion of climate emergency. So you're going to produce a paper for our interest or whatever, or perhaps your plans for this. And I just wondered how it fitted in with the East Sussex Joint Waste Strategy, which I know is not part of this group, but that was one question, how that fitted in and worked together with the East Sussex County. So that was my one question. The other one was about the Kia. When we had wonderful Kia, their target was 60 per 100,000, and ours with you is 121. I think that's the figure that's still in the honeymoon period. And I just was a question about that, of what if we are going to change that target, to lower that target, given your amazing performance. I love the expression body ergonomics. I must remember that next time I trip up.
Yeah.
Body ergonomics. Just a small thing about the NI 151, which is street cleaning. And before, when I could, I actually went round with the contractor, one of the contractors, went round Rye, and she was extraordinarily thorough at measuring what needed cleaning, having a look, what detritus meant, etc. But the one thing I was quite shocked about is she had driven all the way from the West Country. So our contract with, I think it's called WYG, that's an awful long way and not a good thing for carbon reduction to come. So that was my other comment. And one more thing, if I may, is there have been reported that the electrical items, the are not always collected on observation, that they have seen, residents have seen them being just thrown back or thrown into the cart. So just a bit of reassurance needed on the collection. I mean, I've put we out, and it's been fine. It's collected well. So just those things, if you wouldn't mind, Trevor.
Okay, thank you very much. In terms of the carbon reduction, how this would fit, I'm not sure if Madeline or Simon Bagley would like to take that question, because obviously that we are. I'm not sure if Simon, are we privy to the detail of each authority's aspirations and commitment?
Chair, with your permission, I'll handle that one if that's okay.
Yes, that's fine, Madeline.
Thank you. So yes, the joint waste strategy is a county-wide strategy. As you say, Councillor Prochak, all of the local authorities in the county have committed to carbon neutrality, or at least reduction. The process to influence that strategy is via the Waste Strategy and Resource Group. So rather than this being handled within this contract group, it's a bigger picture, because obviously it needs to include Eastbourne and Lewis as well, and probably touch on Brighton and Hove too. So what I'd suggest is that effectively our county colleagues put that forward as an action for the Waste Strategy and Resource Group to take on board at the next review of that strategy. In terms of the work that BIFA are going to be doing, and the way that they can help us achieve changes or improve our carbon position, the proposal is that they will build on some of the internal meetings that have taken place with officers and come back to this committee on the 26th of March with an agenda item or a presentation. The exact format of how we present that information I've yet to go through with BIFA, but we aim to provide you as councillors and decision makers with a good picture of what this could really mean, and in terms of how this contract or this service could be developed. So that's the first step.
Thank you, Madeline. I hope that answers that part of your. Yeah, I see the nods. Thank you, Councillor Prochak. Your further questions, answers to your further questions, Trevor?
Councillor, if appropriate, I think the Kia target question and the WYG monitoring question I probably need to handle as well, please.
Please do.
So in terms of the Kia target, yes, absolutely. If we go all the way back to the early 2000s, indeed, particularly in Hastings, actually, performance was consistently being achieved at 60 per 100,000 on missed bins. Again, with some hindsight and as improvements have been made in with the technology, I'm happier that here now in 2021, we're actually counting things much more accurately than we probably did back in the very, very early 2000s, simply because the technology is now being carried on the vehicles. And of course, we've all got smartphones and devices with us every minute of every day now. In terms of that target, this was all discussed in 2017-18 as we were procuring for this contract, because we all recognised that actually Kia had allowed that target to be increased, shall we say, is probably the most diplomatic way of putting that. For a range of operational reasons under the Kia management, that target unfortunately was increased. Maybe it was more accurate, maybe it was failings in the service. But anyway, regardless of why, when we procured for this contract, we didn't see the point in trying to reintroduce an old target that quite honestly would be too much of a stretch for the reality of the condition of the service at the point of handover, i.e. we couldn't just magically expect a new contractor to turn things around in a matter of weeks or months. Therefore, we established the target at actual performance at the end of the Kia contract, with the intention that now we've got a full year and a half into the contract. In this next performance period, i.e. from late 2021 onwards, we can then start to push this, so effective performance, and make the target a little bit of a stretch, not a fantastic vision. So we may not get back to 60 in the next year, but we will certainly be on that road. Sorry, I know that was quite wordy. I hope that made sense to everyone. It was important to understand that we couldn't just, that there is no magic in this service, and just establishing a very, very hard target doesn't mean it's realistically achievable. But we will be achieving improvements on this as we progress through this contract. And in fact, as you can see from the information that's been presented over the last year, indeed BIFA are making improvements on missed bins, and we're all very pleased about that.
Thanks, Madeline. I think that was a very good explanation. We all understand we need stretch targets, but they also have to be realistic.
Thank you.
And there's a long-term road, and BIFA's well down the road. Well down that road, so to speak.
Yeah. With regard to WIG and monitoring, yes, WIG, they are a nationwide company. Their managers and employees work all around the UK. It is necessary to travel, and at the current stage, I do appreciate the point about carbon production on that, but I feel that the benefit we receive in terms of expertise and diligent monitoring, I would currently still support the use of an organisation like WIG, even though it means that their operatives then have to travel somewhat, because I believe the benefit of an independent external assessor, it just deals with so many potential contractual conflicts and disputes that I would still support that over the negative aspect of how far they have to travel for us. Thank you.
And the last point was on the WE collections, I believe.
Yeah, if I may.
Over that back to you.
Yeah, thank you, Madeline. In terms of the small WE performance and the collection performance, yeah, I mean, the initial uptake did catch a few of our crews out, and we apologise for that. But we've subsequently, we've put in a tried and tested methodology and a procedure in place to ensure that when the challenge of the size of the vehicle capacity, carrying capacity is exceeded, they do not just merely leave the items. They then siphon those into another container. They report to the office where it needs to be collected from, and this allows them to continue to collect. So there may have been some early, let's say, errors on our part, and I apologise for that. But this should have been resolved pretty quickly.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
From a personal point of view, for the last couple of collections, we've had wee items. We put them out in the bag as we should do, and they've been collected and dealt with in the normal way. So I can understand looking at the statistics how there was an awful lot of collections at the very beginning, and maybe we underestimated the residents' wish to take on board what we were now offering.
To take part.
I now have Councillor Field.
Yes, thank you. I'm sorry to mess you about, but Councillor Prochak asked my question about NI 195. But I must say I do disagree with the argument that says it's worth driving all that way, dumping all those emissions on the population and the roads between the West Country and here to get the job done. I would have thought, actually, and I understand the need for independent monitoring, but I would have thought a lesser job or the same job done by somebody trained to the same standards should be done by somebody who lives much closer at hand. I don't think in these days of climate emergency, the County Council's declared one to be carbon neutral by 2050. The government's target is 2050, Rother's is 2030. I don't think we can accept somebody travelling all that way just to say, are we cleaning our streets properly, however good they are. Thank you.
Councillor Evans. Mayor?
Thank you. And thank you, Trevor, for your presentation. I'd like to give a special thanks to all the crews and acknowledge them for their incredible frontline work. Without people collecting the rubbish, this essential job, it would be complete mayhem, and they're as important as doctors and nurses and teachers. There'd be a complete breakdown in society if there was rubbish piled up on our streets. So thank you to those frontline workers who have proven their social value as being heavyweights, much more than, you know, someone that would perhaps work in an office in central London, having a salary hundreds of times bigger than theirs. So that's my personal thanks to all the crews who are, I would say, putting their lives on the line during this time of COVID. So my question refers to going back to slide 21, and like Councillor Prochak and Councillor Field, the concerns around climate change and our desire to be carbon neutral. So we had a very in-depth and lively conversation in the last Joint Waste Committee about electric vehicles, and Hastings was very keen to trial electric vehicles in our beautiful but hilly town, with the aim in mind that, you know, if you could pull off electric vehicles in Hastings, then you could probably pull it off anywhere. So, you know, Biffa would collect a lot of data and be able to trial their vehicles there, and we would obviously be closer in Hastings to our ambition to go carbon neutral. And definitely, I mean, if it works in Hastings, we would look towards expanding that in the long term with Biffa, because, you know, a key priority for us is to go carbon neutral. So I was wondering, had there been any progress on that? I know that you were going to go away and look at the feasibility of us trialling, I think it was 2 dust carts to start off with, and how far you'd got with that, please. Thank you, Trevor.
Okay, well, I will include, and I'll ask Fabrice to join in at some point within this answer, but from the local perspective, we have the EV site surveys, i.e. the electrical point surveys, have taken place, and I'm awaiting those responses and the reports back on that, and that's at all 3 sites. I have submitted, and I believe it's been agreed, a capital expenditure for a light van to go into St Leonard's. We can replace, as a trial, we can replace one of the supervisor vans. In terms of the 3.5 ton cage vehicles, i.e. on streets, unfortunately, they haven't dealt with the payload as such at the moment, and you can appreciate that the payload is minimal anyway, but when we increase the unladen weight with a large amount of battery power, the carrying capacity is so we're not looking at that one. In terms of a trial vehicle, Fabrice, would you like to? You've got the experience of other contracts. Would you like to update?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Yes, in terms of electric vehicle, we had indeed a really lively conversation last time. Since actually we've been arranging for a couple of trials that we'd be doing in each actually of the three authorities. So we are firming up the dates, but so far we believe that one trial will take place in April or back end of April. And then another trial will be more around July, mid-July. Again, we've not yet fully confirmed the dates, but we are pushing with this. So it'd be around 3 weeks trials each to have an electric RCV to give us the actually to enable us to learn about, because the configurations are different whether in Hastings, Wilden, or in Rother. So we'd have a better understanding of what the vehicles are, what their technical performance can be, what their autonomy, weight collected, etc.
Thank you, Fabrice.
Thank you, Fabrice. Councillor Barnett-Paul.
Well, yeah, thank you. On the same subject, I think one of the things you mentioned last time was how successful you'd been in changing over in Manchester for electric vehicles, and I think if I'm right, you've already done an extensive trial in Manchester and now rolled out 100% electric fleet. So I wonder if you could tell us a bit more about how you worked your way through that process and why we need to do the same thing in East Sussex, or whether or not the data that's been collected elsewhere in the country through trial of new electric vehicles could be applicable here. Because my major concern is not that we take a decision about moving towards sustainable transport, it's how fast we do it. And the danger of a gentle, considered process in this is that it will be 2030 before we actually make our minds up about anything. Well, we've got to actually save the world by 2030. So we need to get a move on. And I'm a bit disappointed not to have more information coming back on this subject since the last meeting, and just to be promised something coming to the next meeting will lead to a decision. So I wonder, can we speed it up by using some of the data that you've collected in other parts of the country, please? And could you tell us a bit about the life cycle costs and how you've considered those? Because my information coming back is that the life cycle costs for electric vehicles, although their purchase price is considerable, actually works out not much more than the vehicles you're using now, and that the difference in cost is not therefore the factor that should deter us from making the change. Thank you.
From Simon, I think you might be best positioned if you wouldn't mind answering some of the detail that Councillor Barnett has requested.
Sorry, I think I might have double muted again. No, of course, that's fine. More point, but in Manchester, you would imagine we went through a huge number of conversations with them about the changing process. Manchester was slightly different in that when we started in 2014, we actually started with an old fleet, and they transferred the existing fleet of RCVs to Biffa to use as the fleet. So we hadn't started with a brand new fleet of vehicles. So the coincidence was they were coming to end of life, which meant it was the perfect time to consider the opportunity to put a different capital expenditure in to bring electric vehicles in. So there's a nuance there that's quite important. Happy to share via the right routes any of the information we have for Manchester. We did some very detailed air quality reports. The proposal was always about air quality for the residents rather than carbon reduction. It was about creating a far better environment within Manchester city centre, which is the piece of Manchester in which we work. The real, you can imagine, dense conurbations, alleyways, side streets, etc., where we work. And so reducing the air pollution there was, fundamental to how the council wanted to go forwards. The first two trucks are ready to go, and we will end up with 27 full-size electric RCVs running the waste recycling and garden waste services there from April the 1st. Clearly, it's going to be a transition. So over the next 3 months, they will be on site. We have had delays due to COVID. We have had delays due to Brexit. The bodies are being fitted in Holland, and then they can't get back here again. So we've had some, significant operational problems in recent weeks. But we're on track. We're back on track, and the infrastructure is being installed as we speak at the 2 depots. And as Trevor said, clearly one of the fundamental parts of this is having the infrastructure with which you can actually then charge up the vehicles. Pick up the other point about cost. Yes, you're right. There are a number of assessments that are being done at the moment, and if you take a 10-year life cycle of a diesel vehicle with typical mileage, maintenance and other running costs, and compare it to a 10-year life cycle of an electric vehicle, the comparison is close. The problem is, I guess, twofold. One, that initial capital expenditure of buying 40 vehicles at £400,000 a throw is a lot of money for anybody to spend compared to what's a third of that cost for diesel versions. And then it's the assumption that those maintenance savings will actually be achieved. An electric vehicle has got far fewer moving parts. There's no oil, there's no radiator, but you still have to maintain the body. You still have to maintain the hydraulics and everything that's within the lift. The body still rots due to carrying refuse over 10 years, so we still have to refurbish the actual body that carries the waste. But generally, the figures I've seen is somewhere along the lines of, the one I've got in front of me actually is that potentially you're still looking at an electric costing a £30,000 or £40,000 over the 10 years more. But over 10 years, that's £3,000 per vehicle per year. So it's not a huge amount of money. But if you've got a 40 vehicle fleet, it is £120,000, £130,000 more. So that's sort of the numbers. Happy to answer any other questions, but that's probably enough, hopefully, to answer some of your specific questions there. Okay.
Councillor Barnett, do you want to come back?
Well, thank you. That's a helpful start, Simon. But what I'm looking for is a more detailed proposal coming forward from BIFA, and I hope that the report you're doing for the end of March, we will be talking about some options for all of us, looking at just a trial, but actually some serious thinking about what are the options from your point of view about moving towards electric vehicles across the fleet, across the whole of the contract, even if it's done on a piecemeal basis, and what your recommendations would be about timescales and lifetime costs. And it would also be helpful to know if you've got experience nationally of attracting other funding towards offsetting those costs, because my understanding is there is some government funding available, and it would be interesting to know if you could do the research from other authorities about whether there is funding that we could actually apply towards any transition in East Sussex. Thank you.
Okay. I'm sure BIFA is jotting down everything that we are asking for the next meeting. Councillor Projak? You're muted still. You're still muted.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Councillor Barnett. That was my question entirely. And it's good to have Simon's expertise here today. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I don't believe there are any other questions. I can't see any other indicating. Actually, what I like to do is echo, but on behalf of the whole of the committee, Councillor Evans' comments. If you could pass our comments on to all the BIFA staff and especially for the crew. The pandemic, working through these horrendous pandemic times, your report shows how much work you've all put into it, how much work they're putting into it. The performance is improving despite everything that we're all going through, and it's very heartfelt thanks. If you could pass them on our behalf, please.
Of course we will, and thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you. So if we go back to the agenda, we've got agenda item number 8 now, and I'm going to invite Madeline, please, to introduce the report.
Thank you, Chair. Again, Happy New Year to everybody. The reports, we've been shifting the format of these reports as we've gained confidence, really, and our relationship with BIFA has developed in the last 18 months. And with reference to paragraph 2, I'd like to reiterate how pleased we as client officers are that over this time we've been able to verify the source data, the information that's coming through and is being presented by BIFA to you as committee members, we genuinely believe is an accurate reflection of what's really happening out on the ground and our understanding of the service. So that's probably the biggest change, is that I will not be providing missed bin, missed assisted collection type analysis in this report anymore, because of course I can now genuinely say we can rely on the information that Trevor provides in his presentations. So again, that's all good news, and the whole service and the way it's being managed is step by step getting towards our specified vision, i.e. the people who are really in charge of what happens out there day to day are the same people that we can then rely on to bring us information to make key decisions on. And while some people might say that slightly reduces the client role, if you like, that's actually the way it should be, is that those direct managers and their structure are able to report directly through to you as the key decision makers. That's all good. The usual scattering of local matters and focuses. Again, nothing too significant, and that's through the next part of the report. And again, with reference to paragraph 17, I'd just like to reiterate how pleased I am as somebody who's been working in this now for just about 10 years now, actually. God, that's gone very quickly. And my experience with previous contractor, of course, was very different. And I'm really, really pleased that our relationship with BIFA and their managers has settled. And I'd like to just refer to Trevor's point in his presentation about their management structure and how that management structure has now been filled with people who are experienced, competent, capable, and are working well together, both as a BIFA team and with us as the client team. So again, we genuinely feel that everything is moving in the right direction. I'd like to make a comment on paragraph 19 and apologise and just say that I believed at the point where I'd written the report that all the approvals had actually been secured, and then I realised actually, although it's on the agenda, the Hastings decision isn't tabled until the 1st of March. So a little bit of a delay on that, but again, no reason to think that there's that anything will make that go awry, and the transfer of the administering authority role to Wealdon will take place on 1st of April as intended. I'd like to focus just for a moment on some of the risks that we as a group of people, and that's the whole contract management group, myself, your supervising officers and the BIFA managers, because we're all very naturally focused, particularly given the new variant of COVID, on what that really means for the contract. I'd like to reassure you that, again, staff absence is monitored every day. It's communicated to us as the client team every day at the moment while we're in this key lockdown period. And just as a refresh, we all believed at the beginning of December that the UK was looking at a secondary spike that we thought would happen during December. As it is, we think that there's probably a week's delay, that some of the basic public behaviour late November and December controlled it, but then this everybody being able to socialise over Christmas may well have an impact over the next week or 2 weeks on us all. Again, the reassurance is that we're watching this very closely. We have our experience of how we handled things back in April, May, June, and we've used that, and BIFA have changed things in terms of their access to agency. BIFA, Trevor made the comment about the quarantine of the vehicles and how an operational change in terms of cleansing has allowed those vehicles to be more readily available the next day. And of course, this is all risk assessed. I'd like to just give Councillor Barnett a little bit of additional reassurance about his comments on the COVID transmissions within the workplace. Each of the environmental health heads receive information every day on the number of positive tests that are reported within your district area. So in my conversation with Una Kane, who is one of the senior environmental health officers on the Rother Wealden service, and this was only yesterday, that we found one disparity between what BIFA understood their workforce had reported as positive versus the information that our own environmental health officers see. Because if I test positive, I need to report to track and trace my employer and my workplace location. So environmental health do a quick postcode check actually on if a BIFA employee is tested positive, where is their actual workplace? So that very quickly highlights if there's a concentration of potential transmissions within a workplace. And of course, that's the whole purpose of track and trace. So again, as well as Trevor being confident that there isn't workplace transmission, I can support that confidence because we're in contact with our own environmental health officers that would identify if there was workplace transmission through that track and trace information. So that's all good. On the increasing rates and the forecasts for the next couple of weeks, I'd just like to give the committee a reassurance that there was a meeting on Tuesday this week where this was discussed with BIFA management. And again, our forecast for the next 2 weeks is that it should be okay. Now, of course, the note of caution on that is if I feel very, very ill tonight and it comes upon me very quickly, I may ring in sick tomorrow. And of course, that is the reality. It is a daily monitoring. But right now, the percentage of staff off sick are well within tolerance, and we have a confidence right now that we would have the staff, or that BIFA would have the staff and have the vehicles available to them. So for at least the next couple of weeks, we think we're okay. And more importantly, if it turns out that we're not okay, every one of us know what we will do, what the next stages are, the points of communication, and effectively how quickly we would take those internal decisions. And that probably is the last note I'd like to make for you as councillors today, is if COVID has a very dramatic effect in the next few weeks, there will be a need for internal decision making. And of course, I would urge you all to be prepared for that just in case. But your supervising officers are well aware of what the options are. We're all talking to each other regularly, and you will be given clear options to take decisions on. And they're very simply, we would need to suspend some services, or we would need to find a way to fund additional staffing. And those are probably the simple A and B option. But the important bit is that you take those in reflection to the circumstances at the time. And if I just round that out for you, if it happened tomorrow, nobody would mind too much if some litter bins maybe weren't emptied on a Friday. But if we forecast that into the middle of next week, it might be more sensible to take some service away from garden waste collections, simply because although it's a paid for service, it's a very flat time of the year for garden waste, and you might want to prioritise some of your litter bins over a garden waste service for a week or so. So it's going to be as simple as that. Of course, fingers crossed, the good people of the UK do our bit. We all stay at home, we keep washing our hands, and actually our infection rates don't spike, and that spike is not felt within our workforces. And that's probably the end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Madeline. And I hope I can say on behalf of all of us, I genuinely hope it is, to quote you back, as simple as that. Thank you for your assurances. Thank you for leading us through what will happen if it need be. We all understand that. We all work very closely with our officers as well, and obviously with BIFA. Now, I don't believe at the moment I've got no one wishing to ask a question. Okay, thank you. Thank you again, Madeline. So we go. Oh, Councillor Prochak, you've just come in.
Sorry to. Thank you, Madeline, for your report. And it's after your sort of seriousness at the end there, I want to ask a very basic question, because I asked Trevor last time about the changing of the rounds, and he said something wonderful, like it's bubbling along. This is in relation to Rother. So my question was about the bubbling, but also just to say quickly that Councillor Field and I have had conversations already, what Madeline has been talking about in terms of what we do should the absence rate go up and we have to lose a service or even spend on a service. So we're already having those conversations. And the other thing to mention is that the survey, I don't know about other authorities, but we've done the survey. The survey's been done on Bring sites and the contamination rates there, and they're quite shocking. I mean, on one there was 80% contamination rate, and I think we are now about to announce that we will be closing some of our Bring sites. So that was just what I wanted to mention. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Prochak. Okay, do we have any other before I move us on? No? All right, thank you. Final agenda item 9, which is just for me to say that the next meeting will be held on Friday, 26th of March 2021 at 10 o'clock. And once again, looking at where we are, it will be held remotely on Teams. Thank you all very much. Keep safe, keep healthy, and I shall see you in March, if not before. And I'm now officially closing the meeting at 11:02. Thank you.